Thomas Castellanos is out. He's going to miss the Western Kentucky game. Is it time to panic?
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. This is a special edition, an emergency podcast of Locked On Boston College. I'm your host, AJ Black, and I'm joined by Mitchell Wolf. Let's just jump right into this. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. When you place your $5 bet, you'll get started. You'll get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get yourself started. So this has been a crazy day, and not one that I expected to start this way. Where there was just lots of bubbling going around online. You saw all the BC burners. They're all going on about like something really vague. And, you know, as someone reporting on the team, I really couldn't get into it. But we got confirmation from the Grim Reaper himself, Pete Thamel, at like 3 o'clock, that Thomas Castellanos is out with an injury that he sustained against Michigan State, and he's going to miss the Western Kentucky game. In his place will be Grayson James, the FIU transfer, who Western Kentucky fans are now showing up to tell everyone they lost 73-0 to Western Kentucky. So let's get into this. Let's just start talking about what this means to BC to lose Castellanos for this game. Mitch, what's your thoughts?
It's not great. Losing a dynamic player like that is huge. And even if he went and wasn't 100%, you know, he still presents a credible threat as a rusher. Well, we don't know exactly what the injury is, but, you know, you assume that he at least has the threat of being a rusher and a passer that can open up the rest of the offense instead of the defense just collapsing on the run game and loading the box. So it's not great. Then again, if there's an opponent that is an FBS opponent that if he was going to miss a game, this would be the one that you'd pick because as we talked about in the last episode, you know, Western Kentucky is a decent group of 5 team, but they're still a group of 5 team and they're not as good as they have been in the last few years. So again, this is the game you'd pick, but you would obviously prefer to have Tommy be healthy and be able to play in this game.
This is tough. Yeah, you wanted Thomas to come back and Tommy to play, and no idea what the injury is. I'm not going to speculate. That's not professional to do that kind of thing, but hopefully this is a short-term injury that he can be back for the UVA game because that's going to be important too. Now, let's look at Grayson James. Grayson James came here from FIU, and this is going to be probably the bulk of our conversation because I think there's a lot of discussion here about Grayson James. He comes in after Emmett Moorhead, or actually, was it before? I think no, it was after Emmett Moorhead entered the transfer portal, and gives BC a established quarterback, someone who started for FIU in 2022. He was benched in 2023 for a true freshman. Enters the transfer portal, comes to Boston College. He was high school teammates with, I believe, Jerron Bradley. And there was a lot of buzz about him this spring. Mitch, I know you've seen him a little. You watched him during the spring game. You've seen him at practice. What's up? What should fans expect from him?
Yeah, I mean, if you listened to this pod earlier in the summer, you know that I'm not the biggest Grayson James fan, or at least I'm not the fan of the narrative that he was going to challenge Thomas Castellanos to be the starter. That was really the big thing. Watching Grayson James, and I actually watched his 2023 start against Louisiana Tech earlier today, just to kind of refresh myself. And that was not a good game for him. I think if you're trying to be positive or, you know, inhale the copium, you think that, oh, Grayson James struggled at FIU because it's one of the worst teams in the FBS. They really don't have a lot of talent. So you think, okay, then he's just, you know, not being given an opportunity to succeed. On the other hand, if he was that good, then he would probably be at a better school or he would be able to elevate the talent around him, which didn't necessarily happen. For James as a player, he's obviously a much bigger quarterback, 6'3"-ish, 230-some pounds. He's a decent runner, obviously nowhere near Castellanos, but he can, you know, be effective on some quarterback design runs, some read options, stuff like that. But you're not going to have that be a huge part of the offense. And granted, it wasn't actually a huge part of the offense with Castellanos this year anyways. They were trying to ironically keep him healthy. As a passer, he has a decent enough arm to push it downfield. The accuracy is a little inconsistent. In the spring, specifically the spring game, we saw him, you know, be able to move the ball a decent bit. I would say a lot of that was checkdowns. Most of it gets the second team defense. And when they got into the 2-minute situation where they had to throw the ball downfield, he either wouldn't, or he took a sack, or he threw interceptions. And again, what I said in the spring was, it felt like Grayson James was just trying to pass the test, whereas Castellanos was trying to ace the test. And I think we've seen those results bear out for Castellanos pretty well in the first few games, where he has been able to make a lot of those big time throws over the middle, even in poor conditions. So with James, again, like we talked about, this is an opponent that is really struggling on defense, especially against the passing game, and has traditionally struggled against the run. So you can probably lean on the run game very heavily, just because of how much smaller Western Kentucky, not as strong Western Kentucky is against the run. And maybe you can have some success in the passing game, but you're probably not going to rely on that as much. You're probably going to deploy a game plan similar to one you used against Florida State, where you run the ball, kill the clock, keep Western Kentucky's offense off the field as much as possible, and try to get out of there with a, ostensibly a much closer victory than we anticipated going into this game.
Yeah, I was going to say, on yesterday's show, our pre-Tommy Castellanos disaster pod, you were going more with the lower score, and I was the one that had the score of BC winning by, like, what was it, 35-14 or something like that. And I'm not feeling confident about that at all. Now, I got to watch. I'll give you a little bit of my perspective, because I got to see Grayson James a lot during camp, and you saw a lot of what you fans fell in love with during the spring game, and that both Mitch and I saw pieces of that, but also got a little worried, which is he would be fine. He'd throw some nice passes. He was with the second team a lot. So you saw him hitting like Shake McGowan and Dino Tomlin and guys like that a lot. But then he would get nipped with a bad interception or, a pass he should never have thrown. And that's what worried me about what he could do. Because, yeah, you can throw 4 really nice 10-yard passes in a row, but if you throw an interception on the 5th, all of that doesn't matter. So my hope is that he continues to develop, and he hasn't played much, and he's also been hurt. I think folks need to understand that as well. He missed, what was it, the Mizzou game that he was out? Duquesne game. Yeah, he sat, and Jacoby Robinson played for him. I'm a little concerned with that piece. If he makes big mistakes, that's the perfect recipe for Western Kentucky to make a comeback and win an upset game, even without Castellanos, with BC being a favorite in this one.
Yeah, that's definitely what I'm concerned about as well, because, we talked about that issue a lot with Castellanos and taking that out of his game. And you basically say, okay, with Tommy, you take a bit of that because of his ability to create with his legs. And this year, he has kind of not had that turnover problem and making dumb throws as much as he did last year. And he hasn't been used as much with his legs, and he has been effective just because he hasn't been used as much, which I think is a good strategy. So with James, we're kind of back with the Tommy situation, where it's like, okay, as long as he doesn't make the really big mistake, which, again, Western Kentucky's defense is predicated on getting turnovers, being aggressive with the blitz to confuse quarterbacks and get them to turn the ball over and give their offense good field position and give them the opportunity to just keep scoring points. So I think that's why you take James as a passer out of the game a lot here, just by trying to run the ball using Trayshawn Ward and Turbo Richard and maybe get deeper into the backfield. And you just don't put the game on James. Don't have him throw very much. Don't have him make risky passes. If you're going to throw, try screens, try RPOs. Don't do anything crazy. So yeah, that's kind of what I expect the game plan to be.
All right. In a moment, Mitch and I are going to continue our conversation. Thank you all who have joined us. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button before you, while you're listening to this episode, because we're doing this as a special podcast, and I'd love to have you guys on for our regular podcast as well. We'll be back with more discussion about this injury in just a moment. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5% APY with uninvested cash, receive unlimited 1% deposit bonus, and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement bonus on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. This is Locked On Boston College. AJ Black. We have over 60 live listeners, which is fantastic. Even when we used to do these live after shows, it was games. It would never be like this. But so it's welcome you all. Again, we're talking about Thomas Castellanos, who's going to miss Saturday's game with an undisclosed injury. The school is not going to release it. And I'm going to tell you right now, as someone who covers and does the reporting, digging into injury stuff is an icky situation, and schools are very protective over it. So I am not going into that. They usually own, like, anything that Boston College has injury related, they usually play coy with the local media and release it all to Pete Thamel. And that's exactly what happened here. So you're not going to know what it is until either O'Brien talks about it at a press conference, which he's usually pretty savvy about and won't, or Thamel says something. So right now we don't know what's injured. We don't know if it's long-term. We don't know if it's short-term. We just know he's out. And so Grayson James is going to be in this game. Mitch, you kind of talked a little bit about the game plan. Like, is there any other thoughts that you have about what other things that you would do to kind of make Grayson James successful in this one?
I think, well, first of all, I think we kind of talked about the idea of this being a letdown game for BC and how Bill O'Brien wanted to avoid that. And honestly, in a kind of ironic twist of fate, this is probably the best way to get the rest of the team locked in, because you take Tommy out, he's missing the game, you go to your backup quarterback, and I'm sure the guys have like faith in Grayson James and all that, but again, I've talked a lot about how Castellanos' leadership and how people seem to really rally behind him. So kind of in his absence, you hope that the defense, or the rest of the team, and defense especially, will kind of step their game up to perform better in his absence. So you get everybody, okay, we got to win this one for Tommy while he's out of here, so we can get back on track when he's healthy again. So I think that's almost a positive, a Pyrrhic victory, if you will, for how BC is going to approach this game. Regarding the rest of the game plan, again, I think basically you want to get the ball out of Grayson James's hands quickly. We've seen Castellanos really have these long, extended dropbacks where he'll then run around for a little bit. And I don't think you're going to see that as much in this game. I think you're going to see a much quicker pass game. You probably don't want to have Grayson James testing the middle of the field a ton, just because with how Western Kentucky is going to show blitz before the snap, then drop out of it sometimes and do all these funky looks with their fronts. You don't want him throwing over the middle when they're dropping defenders into coverage, and that could lead to a turnover. So you probably want to, get the ball out to the perimeter, get it out to guys like Lewis Bond. As I said, Grayson James has a decent arm, and obviously I said, like, don't, do anything stupid. But if they get a one-on-one matchup with guys like Reed Harris and Jerron Bradley on go routes or fade routes from the slot, I wouldn't be shocked if they try to take some of those, because looking at Western Kentucky's defensive backfield, they are pretty undersized. So if you've got 6'4", 6'5", receivers out there and they've got a one-on-one matchup, I'm not going to hate you taking that shot, because that could, really flip the field. Maybe get a quick score out of there. So that's one thing you could do. I think, this is Bill O'Brien. He's a quarterback whisperer, all that. This almost reminds me, I think he was still the offense coordinator when the year after the Patriots almost went undefeated, Matt Castle steps in because Tom Brady's hurt. You're kind of getting a similar situation here. Obviously, different levels of talent, different time period of football, but you're getting the backup to come in. And I think, there are a few coaches I would trust more to get a backup better prepared for an opportunity like this, especially against, again, a group of 5 team with a pretty suspect defense.
All right. We have a very active comment section right now, and Dave Scalara says, MW Mitchell. That's exactly what WK is hoping for, Western Kentucky. They will load the box. James will have to throw to win. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, and my point is that I think we've seen that even when teams load the box, you're going to see BC run it anyways. And I think the hope is that BC's offensive line, which is bigger and stronger, will be able to get some movement in the run game. And then they'll still be able to keep the ball rolling on the ground. I think there'll be times when they are going to have to pass, you're right. But in other words, like, I still think they're going to try to run the ball a lot. And I think they're going to have some success with it. We'll just have to see is when they do have to throw, will James be able to take advantage of those opportunities?
Jeffrey Griffin says Michigan didn't throw to win. Yep. So
again, the part of that was that Alex Orji is a very good running quarterback. Like, that is definitely that they basically built the offense around to be a part of the run game. I would say Grayson James is not that.
He can run the ball though too. He's not like
he's not. I mean, he's a better athlete than Emmett Moorhead was. So
yeah, and he can run. And I would put him more in the similar vein to Jacoby Robinson in that kind of movement. Right?
Yeah. I would say they're pretty similar players.
And Possibly, and I saw a lot of folks saying BC's facing a mobile quarterback. I think it's just a quarterback that can move a little bit, right? Like he's kind of similar too, right?
No, I looked into that. I don't think that that's necessarily true. Like they use him a decent bit on quarterback power runs because he's 6'6", 230, and they can use it in short yardage and then down near the goal line. But I think when I looked it up, he has. I'll see if I can pull it up quickly, but I believe the number was like 17 designed runs for 23 yards or something.
Okay.
So
the person yelling at me that BC's going to run into a bad running quarterback and lose, that's not the case.
No, that's not true. And again, their quote unquote starter was TJ Finley, who we're not sure if he's still hurt. I think he is not going to play. So it'll be Caden Veldkamp, who's the guy we're talking about. TJ Finley's a little bit better of an athlete, but even then, I don't think they were using him on designed runs that often either. So I would, again, I would not agree that, Caden Veldkamp is going to be, a super big design rushing threat in this game.
All right. In a moment, we're going to do some revised picks because I don't think it's fair to either of us that we keep our picks that we had from yesterday. We'll see what both of us think in terms of our predictions for Saturday's game with Thomas Castellanos out. We'll be back in a moment to continue our emergency podcast on the injury of Thomas Castellanos. We'll be right back in just a moment. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. All right, let's yesterday we did the 3 big games, Mitch. We did Florida and Alabama, Miami, Virginia Tech, and Louisville and Notre Dame. BC and Western Kentucky started at 12.5, 13-ish, and it's already down to what, 8.5, 8?
It's at 7.5 now.
It's just it's plummeting like a rock.
Mm-hmm.
Without giving your predictions, would you take BC in the points at this point, or are you going towards Western Kentucky?
At 7.5, no. I'd probably take Western Kentucky there. I think if it gets to 6.5, I would take BC just because that's depending on what side of the number you want. I feel like taking the under here is at 49.5 is also probably pretty smart. If you think that BC's going to be, I think BC's going to be able to run the ball and control the clock. I think BC's defense is going to come out and play motivated and be able to limit Western Kentucky to an extent. So I think you're definitely getting a lower scoring game. This over under has dropped by 5 points as well. So I would still, at this point at 7.5, I'm probably just not touching it, but I would take Western Kentucky if I had to. But if it goes down to 7 or 6.5, I would take BC.
All right. You can also go to FanDuel and get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Again, that's $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. All you have to do is visit FanDuel.com. AJ Black and Mitchell Wolf, we're doing our emergency podcast about the injury of Thomas Castellanos. Just to recap for folks who have joined us late, we don't know what the injury is, but we do know that Thomas Castellanos is going to miss Saturday's game, and Grayson James, first year with Boston College after transferring from FIU, is going to be the starter. For folks that are panicking, one thing I've seen people panicking about, and I've seen Western Kentucky fans using it as a joke, but I've seen people pointing to it too. As poorly, and I don't even know how he did in that game, but against Western Kentucky last time, Grayson James lost 73-0. Florida International was a terrible football team, were they not?
Yes, that was in 22, I believe, when then they haven't gotten any better since then.
Yeah.
And that was the first year that Western Kentucky had Austin Reed, who was a great successor to Bailey Zappi. They had Malachi Corley, who's a very good receiver. I think they had another receiver who was pretty good too. So that was when they were like putting up records as an offense. So I would, be skeptical that would be the exact same result, because at that point, James is playing for a team that is operating at probably a similar talent deficit to Western Kentucky than what Western Kentucky is operating compared to BC right now.
All right. Let's put on your prediction hat here. We're obviously thinking something different may happen here. What are you predicting is going to happen on Saturday?
I still think BC wins. I'm probably I think I'm going to go like 28-21. It's going to be close. Probably late into the game, honestly. I think that BC's defense will come to play. I think they'll be able to get at least one turnover that's really important. I think BC's offense will still be able to, move the ball decently well, just because I don't think this, we talked about last week, it was the rain. They had to limit the game plan. BC still ran the ball exceptionally well against a decent Big Ten defense. This is a middling to below average group of 5 defense. They're going to be able to run the ball pretty well. West Kentucky has done better against the run because they were playing Eastern Kentucky, Middle Tennessee State, and Toledo. That's very different. So I think BC wins this game. I think it's going to be uncomfortable for most of it, unfortunately. But I think that Bill O'Brien will have the guys ready to go, and they'll be able to get out of here with a win.
I still am not sure what I'm going to pick in this game. I still think BC is going to win, but I'm thinking something like 24-13. And I think what we're going to see is a heavy dosage of running. And we don't know what's going on with Kai Robichaux, if he's going to play or not. But I honestly don't think that matters. As we said on yesterday's episode, if you had Turbo Richard out there and you used him in Trayshawn Ward, you're still going to be able to run the ball. They still have their 5 offensive linemen, though not sure what's going on with Jude Bowery, who also had something cryptic go up earlier, but he deleted it. But even if that's the case, I still think BC has the front to push around Western Kentucky, and I like BC's defense against Western Kentucky to force a turnover or two. If BC can make 2 turnovers, 2 interceptions, I think BC can easily win by 2 scores here. So I'm going to go with 24-14, I think is going to go with my score for this one. Whatever you guys thinking, this is going to be a prove-it game, as Daniel Wang says. This is going to be a game BC needs to show that it's not all just Thomas Castellanos. This is a game that BC has other guys that can win it for them. And as Mitch said earlier, it could be a great rallying cry for this program that, they just won a big game, but now they lost their heart and soul. Can the other guys rally to the ball and win for them? Any last thoughts, Mitch, before we head out?
No, I'm really not looking forward to this game now because I feel like it's just going to be a very stressful way to begin my Saturday.
And luckily for me, I'm going to get to go and watch this thing live. I was like, and you know what stinks about this too is, as I've said, I told Mitch this many times, Thomas Castellanos is like my kid's favorite player. I just bought them like jerseys for both of them. And now I got to go tell them both that he's not.
Oh, so it's your fault.
It's going to be my fault. They're going to get mad. They will get mad at me for that. Somehow it's going to be my fault. So anyways, Mitch, where can people find you?
You can find me at Mitchell T. Wolf, WOLFE on Twitter. Check out our work at Eagle Insider. Obviously, we'll have stuff going up after the game is over. And, just check out everything that's going on over there.
And you got our Twitter handles. We got our new fancy screens here. You can follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. Again, check us out on Eagle Insider. I'll be back again live again after tomorrow's show for a postcast on the Locked On Boston postcast site. Look that up on YouTube, please, and make sure you slam that subscribe button so that you are going to not miss that. For Mitch, this is AJ. Thank you for checking out this emergency episode of Locked On Boston College, your team every day.